Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining. This is the 9th day on full stack software development using Python. And we are going to cover today these topics. The first thing is that we'll be authenticating user using Flask sessions, building on the top of what we have already done in the last class, right? We had the user registration system built, and also we have the login system already. But the session management had a serious problem. We didn't do it right. We were just, we had the session, but we had no session. We used a global variable to do the job, which is not the right way to do it. So we'll be fixing that in this class. We will be also beautifying the user interface. Because it doesn't look good today. It's basic HTML and CSS. We'll be introducing Bootstrap CSS framework and making our UI look better. Okay. So before we dive in, maybe it's important to show what we already have. Maybe just give a quick demo for 2-3 minutes. Just wanted to know how many members here joined the last class. If you raise your hand, so I know how many members we have who are completely new. All right, you can see 3 members. Thank you so much. So, all right, so maybe it's important to give a demo of what we have built already. All right, so I'll give you a quick demo. Also, it's a good recap, I think, for everyone. So the code is hosted on Repl.it. Okay, so here we code together. Everyone can participate. I'll need volunteers. So this is a code that we have built together, and the application is running on the cloud. So there you go. The application looks like this at this point. Okay, it has, if you see my screen, it has a register link. Okay, and there we can sign up for this application. And this application, what is this application? This is basically a Twitter clone. We call it Repl.it app. There, we are able to sign up. Okay, so let's sign up. Maybe I'll just give a name. There you go, Mr. Bin, and then password is Mr. Bin as well. Okay, so I can sign up. Okay, maybe I have Mr. Bin already in there. So let's do Mr. Z, and Mr. Z is the password. So let's sign up. There you go, successfully signed up. So now once we are signed up, we can now log in. Mr. Z and Mr. Z, the password. And you can see that it's asking, what is happening? Okay, it's basically asking me for a tweet. So I'll maybe just say that it's a good morning. Okay, good morning. Okay, so the moment I post it, it gets saved in the backend, which is a database that we have recently built. And then I can probably want to give out a good morning again, another tweet. Okay, so now enough. I think we have 2 tweets. Now it's time to go and check how many tweets we have. You can go to tweets, the page where we can see all the tweets that we have tweeted so far, right? You can see there are 12 altogether. The last 2 are the ones that I just created, right? I just posted these 2, right? I can log out from here. So there's you can see that there's something like log in and log out, but it's not done the right way. And we'll be fixing it today. All right. So this is the tweets page. We can also go to /tweet/Mr. Z to see all the tweets from Mr. Z. So there you go. It's just basic filtering from the database that is already working. Okay. But this is what we have so far. So let me log out. Okay. Well, what is the problem with it? We'll be talking about what the problem with it, and then we'll also be fixing it. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Go forward. So in the just for the new members who joined, the previous videos are on this link, youtube.com/raptorcoder. I'll be pasting these links Okay, Arifax, where can we get the slides? I'll be sharing the slides link and the video links right here. Okay, just give me a sec. Okay, and video links will be here. So I have copied that note for you. Okay, there you go. So all the links are in the chat. The YouTube, all the previous sessions are uploaded in the YouTube, uploaded on YouTube. The code is there as well, all the Repl.it code, and the Google Drive has also been shared. Okay, great. So let's get started. All right, so the current login system. So this is what we have so far. In the Python file, we have something called global current user. And then whenever the user is logging in, we check if the username and password matches. If it does, okay, if the username and password matches, then we, just set the current user. Okay, that's the global variable that we are setting. While this works, looks like it works, but that's not the right way to do that. Okay, the problem with this method is pretty obvious. Multiple users can't log in. And why multiple users can't log in? Because if I log in and I set the system sets the global user as my name, and if, for example, another member logs in, the global username will get overridden by the new user's name. So that is a complete mess, right? So multiple users can log in. This method does not work at all. Okay. Next problem that we have is stores user info in global variable. This is a bad practice to have global variable in general, right? We should not. I mean, it's not that it's always bad. There are good scenarios, but for this case, definitely this is not a good case at all. We should not use something like global user for managing sessions. Next problem that we have, there's no real session management. Now, as far as the session is concerned, a session is a connection between the user's browser, if the user is coming from browser, is a connection between the user browser and the backend. So there needs to be some kind of tracking system so that the backend understand who the user is and the front end understands, the browser understand how to talk to the backend. So the backend can identify the user. Okay, so there's no such kind of session management happening at this point. Okay. Then the fourth problem is that it's not secure, it's no encryption. So now we're talking about only the username, right? But user can have some other information as well. For example, user's password, temporarily at least, temporary password, some kind of PIN code, anything about the user information is considered pretty critical data, right? If you ever have to store it, it has to be stored on the drive, on the server side, in an encrypted manner, which is not the case at this point. So this doesn't fly in this world of security, where security is pretty critical. This doesn't fly at all. Fifth item is not extendable. We are not I cannot be the only one developing this. There will be other developers working on it. We cannot build on the top of it. So there are a lot of problems here. Okay, as a developer, this is a very, very bad choice. All right, so how can we fix it? The solution is something called, solution come from Flask session. Flask session is a built-in Python library coming from Flask. Sorry, it's not built-in, it's coming from Flask. If you have Flask installed, you have the session already, okay? All we have to do is that we have to import it. So from Flask, import session. That's all. The moment we import the session, we have the superpower in hand. Now, instead of storing the data like we did in the last slide in a current user global variable, okay, we'll be storing the data in the session user key. Now, session here is a dictionary, as you can see, right? It's a Python dictionary. People who are new to Python, it's like a hash map, okay? Something like a hash map. So we are just setting the key session user to the username, okay? And that's all, basically. That's super simple, right? Like going from a bad solution to a good solution is a piece of cake, honestly, with Flask session. So that's all. So as you can see, the app.route, when the user /login, and this is the post method, if the user, after checking the username and password, if the user is logged in, then if the username and password matches the stored username and password, which user is authenticated, should I say the username and password match the stored username and password. In that case, the session user will be username. So what it does is that it creates a session, a real session in the backend and in the front end. The backend means the Flask web application itself. It stores the data in Flask, okay? It also creates a cookie. A cookie is a browser cookie I'm talking about here that tracks the user session, okay? A cookie, if you know about the cookie, I don't know, how many of you know, how many of you know about cookie? If you raise your hand, please. Browser cookies. Okay, I see 3 members. Or 4, okay. 5 members, okay, great. So yeah, so thank you so much. So cookies, in a nutshell, cookies are small data that is stored on the browser side that is used most of the time for tracking the user, okay? When we log in, there's probably a cookie, whatever website it is. When you log in, and something like an ID is provided to you so that the browser can track you. This ID is stored on the browser side, and whenever you access the website, imagine Facebook or Google or whatever website, if there is an authentication, then there's a high chance that it's using cookie, okay? And whenever we talk to the browser, we'll talk to the backend, the cookie data is automatically getting posted to the backend. So every time I interact with the site, the cookie information is going to the backend, which means that if this, imagine it's a tracker, some kind of hash that's tracking me as a user. So every time the backend has an opportunity to find out who the user is, okay? So we'll be seeing that in action today. And also understand a little more details about cookie, like for example, expiry, which is pretty important. That when the cookie expires, when is it that you are logged out and when is it that you're logged in? Okay, so we'll talk about it a little more. All right, so this is all we need to do to create a session. That this is something happening on the back end, but the browser will get a cookie automatically given by the Flask. Now let's go to the next slide. How to log out. Well, while this solution, setting the user, logs in the user, this is how you log out. You just delete the session user key. That's all. We just delete the session user key and done. Okay? As simple as that. I mean, honestly, it's a piece of cake if you ask me. It's basically, if you know how to deal with dictionary, you know how to handle sessions already. Okay? So as simple as that. In the logout route, we just delete the session user key. This is the very session user key. This is the very session user key that we set here, right? So this is super simple. I'll go to the next one. How do we check if the user logged in? What is the way? So since when the user is logged in, we are setting the user key. When the user is logged out, we are deleting the user key. In order to check if the user is logged in or not, all we have to do is check if the user key exists in the session variable. That's all. It's a dictionary, right? End of the day, it's a dictionary. A dictionary has key value, key value, key value. We ourselves, we set the user key when the user was authenticated. Now, whenever I have to check, is the user logged in? I just check if the user key is there in the dictionary, session dictionary. If it is there, I know user is authenticated. If it is not there, send the user to the login page. Pretty simple. Any question at this point? Yeah.
Right. So you're saying that the session is kind of a channel between the browser and the backend. So imagine if excuse me, if I have like 2 browsers open up simultaneously, if I log in as a same user and someone maybe one a little bit faster than the other guy, and how does using the same user ID, how does this session library from Flask managing if someone decides to log out from the other browser, but then the other one session still remaining open?
That's a very good question. Thanks for your question. So the question is that imagine the same user logging in from 2 different browsers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, because the user, with the basic configuration, without any special arrangement, the session will allow both users to be logged in. So you will be, if I'm Hassan, I'll be able to imagine I'm using Firefox and Chrome, same username, Hassan and Hassan. Both will have 2 different sessions for the same user. Okay, for the same user. Now, this is a behavior you can, for example, if you are using Gmail, you are able to log into Gmail, the same account from 2 different browsers. Okay. All you have to do is authenticate. So this is not a problem. This is rather a feature, right? I would call it a feature rather, that allows it. Now, if you don't want that, if you don't want the same user to be logged in from the multiple browsers, then definitely on the backend side, we can check that if the user has another session, then delete that session first and only create one. But I don't think this is necessary. Okay, but now coming back to your question is that how does it work? So what happens is that 2 different sessions are created. Now here you can see that the session variable that we have, this session is user specific. This is not a global variable. Okay, so when the same user logs in from 2 different browsers, it's actually getting 2 very different sessions, and the data is also very different. The session key, the identifier, is also different. Okay, both for both browsers, there will be 2 different identifiers, even though the user is the same. So kind of honestly, the session will treat both users as 2 different users, even though they're the same user. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other question? All right, we'll move next. So this is how you check. You just check if the key exists in the session, and we are done. All right, let's move next. How does it work? I think I talked about it already. It creates a session. It sets the expiry of the session. Now, this is important. I think we didn't talk about it in detail. Every cookie has an expiry. So the cookie, like I said, is data stored on in the browser to track the user, right? So now this can be any data. But this data, we cannot leave the data forever, right? I mean, there can be security problem. And also you probably don't want to leave it there. You probably want to clean things up, right? So this data has an expiry. Okay, we can set the expiry by default. The expiry is whenever the user closes the browser, the cookie is deleted. Okay, and if the cookie is deleted, technically the user is logged out. So next time user comes in, user will be forced to log in, right? So this is the default behavior in Flask. If the browser is closed, the user is logged out. However, we could also set an expiry and say that this is a permanent session. There's something called temporary session. There's something called permanent session. A permanent session is something that will survive multiple browser restarts. And instead of focusing on the restart or whether the browser is open or not, there'll be a date and time, for example, when the cookie will be expired. Okay, imagine you want to say that, hey, if the user logs in, let this session live for 1 year. Let the session, so in this 1 year time, whenever the user is using the same browser, he will not have to log in, okay, unless he explicitly logs out. Now, where is this like this? So now you can imagine that, okay, now if this is an instruction that store the user data or keep the user data for 1 year, then where is the data? What is the expiry set? The expiry set is set in the cookie. Also, whatever data you are storing in the session on the server side, it creates a cookie file on the server side that's encrypted and stored directly in the hard drive. Okay, there are other ways of storing it. By default, is the hard drive. We could store it something like Redis or any kind of storage, in-memory storage as well. This is also a very good solution, but the default one is the hard drive. I have a question here from Mary A. What happens if the user signs into the web page using incognito? Excellent question, Mary. So if the user, imagine I'm signed out, I'm signing in using incognito, then it's actually a totally new browser. It's like you're logging in from Chrome and logging in from Firefox. It's 2 different browsers. Chrome doesn't know you're logged in with with Firefox. Firefox doesn't know there's a Chrome session going on, right? Incognito creates a totally different environment. It doesn't share data, which means that it's going to be considering you in your incognito as a new user, and it will force you to log in.
So you're saying incognito doesn't have cookie on the browser?
Incognito will have cookie. Incognito will have a different set of cookie, right? It's a new set of cookie. Incognito is just session isolation or data isolation. It's not, I mean, without cookie, we can't really browse the web because it's super critical for session management. Incognito will have cookie. Incognito is just an isolation layer, right? It's like, imagine, what do you call, whenever you start incognito, your session, your storage data, and everything inside the browser is brand new, it's fresh, which means that it's just a new browser that has nothing to do with your old sessions. So just what do you call, I would say it's a secured isolation from your standard browser operations. There's another question from Trader. How is that last case represented in the session date? Trader, can you elaborate the question a little more?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So in the case where you have like the user signing through incognito, how is that different when it comes to that session dictionary that we are basically looking up the user attribute in?
How is it different?
Is it different? Like, how do you distinguish between like that particular user in that particular session dictionary?
Okay, so is it coming from the context that the same user logged in from two different?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
So
yes.
The question is that if the same user logging in from two different browsers, and we are using the same session variable, how does it know that two different users are two different? How does it keep track of two different users? Because the same session variable, right?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, it's because every time the user logs in from a different browser, the session variable is unique to that user only, even though the username is same. Okay?
Got it. But
so
they
don't share the data. Because my
Okay.
username and password is the same, it doesn't mean that if I have two different browser sessions, they will be the same. No, the session variables are completely different. It's a blank dictionary for both to begin with.
Okay. So I assume there is like some sort of yet a lower layer sort of abstraction that you can look up through the different sessions of for that particular user.
Absolutely you
Okay.
can. Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't want to derail like the discussion, but maybe after, like later on, you can point us out where can we look up that abstraction?
That definitely, like I said, it can be stored. The session information can be stored in database. The session storage session information can also be, by default, like I said, is the drive, is the hard drive of the server, wherever the server is hosted.
Yeah.
We can use Redis as well. There are APIs provided by Flask, so to access all those sessions information. Okay, so we don't have to go low level, and there are interfaces that we can use definitely. But it's a good question. Thanks. There's another question from Colin. Does the incognito cookie expire when the browser closes, while non-incognito cookie keeps the information whenever the browser closes? Not really. Whether it's incognito or a general browser, incognito definitely closes or deletes all the cookie the moment the incognito tab is closed, no doubt about it. But if it is a general normal browser window, in that case, we need to make sure all the browser windows are closed. We don't have any duplicate sessions there. For example, if you open Google, gmail.com in two different tabs, then closing one tab will not really do the job because you are sharing your cookies there, right? As long as you don't have any connection to the backend or any open window that is browsing that specific site, your cookies will be deleted. So just considering, just keep things simple. If you have one window open in incognito and one window open in a general browser, then if you just close the tab, both will delete the cookies, and we'll see that in action. Hope that answers the question, Colin. Okay, great. All right, so I think how does it work? We kind of have the basic understanding here. So let's move forward. Let's not forget one thing. Now, we talked about securely storing the user's data, right? Now, security is always connected with encryption. And in order to, and that's why the session variable, it forces us to have something called security_key. The app is the Flask app.security_key to be set so that session can use this key to encrypt users' information. Okay, so if you want to have a session, this is something we must have in the code. The security key, it should be a unique key and a secret key that is not shared. The system will use this key to encrypt the user data and also unencrypt the user data. So it's for internal use, but that's something it needs to be there in the code. And ideally, it should not be hard-coded. We'll be hard-coding it today, but just a warning, never hard-coded it. Never hard-coded. It should come from an environment variable, okay? It should come from an environment variable. And it should, not be shared with anyone else. Okay, there's a question from Trader. Is it primarily for encrypting the user data and ensure integrity of the session across all users? Yes, it's primarily for encrypting user data. Now, what happens if you change the key, right? Someone might ask this question. What happens if I change the key in the middle? Definitely, you have to restart the server if you change the key. Then what will happen is that existing user who are logged in will be forced to log out because the system will not be able to read their session data, right? So system will just force them to log out. I cannot find your data. So yes, it's for encrypting user data only. All right, any questions so far? All right, I'll go and move next. All right, so it's all about sessions today. I hope it was pretty straightforward and simple. Do we want to talk a little bit about Bootstrap? Because Bootstrap is the other topic that we wanted to cover.
Yes, please.
Great. So the Bootstrap is a CSS framework. And what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's very famous. It's everywhere. Bootstrap is a very old framework. It's nothing, you can get tons of resources out there, okay? But we're still talking about it because I want to, this session is for beginners. I expect no previous experience with CSS or HTML or anything. The idea was that if you don't know it, you still feel comfortable working with it. Now, that's why we're talking about Bootstrap. Bootstrap is probably the #1 CSS framework in terms of usage. Okay, I'm not saying this is the best CSS framework. This is the #1 framework in terms of amount of installation, for example. It's an old one. It's a very reliable one. Tons of websites, like maybe hundreds of thousands of websites have already been built using this Bootstrap framework. Current version is 5, I believe, but people are still using 4 because 5 is still pretty new. Okay, now we can just go to getbootstrap.com to get the Bootstrap CSS. CSS styles your page. As you could see that the last time when I demoed the Twitter app, right? It was not exciting. It was not looking good, right? It doesn't really have that cool UI. So we'll be fixing that, right? But that's super easy, honestly, right? Like, for example, we just imported session and the session management was taken care of it by Flask library, right? In the same way, we can just, import Bootstrap CSS into our HTML files and let Twitter Bootstrap beautify our application, okay? This is a fast-moving world. No one has time to build something from scratch unless you really have to. Well, do you understand? Do you still need to understand the basics, the insights of it? I think it's highly recommended that you understand how things work. is definitely, in order to become a web developer, understanding the insights are very important, right? But when you see that things are already done, we should ask ourselves the question that, is this a problem that's been fixed, solved already? In that case, let's use that. Can I use that? Let's use that. If you absolutely cannot because you have to build something custom, then only build your own solution. Now, from that perspective, we want to beautify our web application. The question is, do we have to build our own CSS, or can we get something from the open source library? Okay, open source world. And the question is yes, why not? No one is forcing us to conform to a specific design that is super complicated. So this is a very general requirement. So we can just use Bootstrap to beautify our web application, right? And that will already take you pretty far, because Bootstrap CSS is also customizable. Okay, we can customize it, we can make it look different, which gives us a lot of power. If you're building your own website and you want it to look different. All right, so it's easy to use. It's super, super easy to use. I personally like it so much because I used to be a CSS developer once upon a time, 20 years ago, I guess, but I don't enjoy CSS, building CSS and doing design anymore. I'm not saying it's not exciting. It is exciting. I'm enjoying something else now. For example, backend development or more, asynchronous software development, which is exciting me nowadays. So I'm more like I'm away from the CSS, HTML, CSS nowadays. I understand the basics of it, and that's good enough for me. Okay. Now it's very easy to use. Anyone with basic understanding of HTML, CSS will be okay. All right. It's mobile friendly, which means you are browsing from your phone using Chrome or Firefox on your phone or Safari. Is gonna the website will look good on your phone as well. It's by default a mobile friendly. Okay, so there was a time when we had to understand: is it a big screen? Is it a small screen? Is it a medium screen? Is it coming from tab? Is the user coming from a iPhone, Android? The system, the developer would have to detect and then do stuff. I mean, this era was really, really tough. Without Bootstrap, managing all these devices and screen sizes would have been like really difficult, right? And we want to develop faster. We want to go to market faster. So Bootstrap is a very good solution. It's not the only solution, though. There are many other great frameworks out there, but Bootstrap is just one of them, and probably the most famous one. And the simple integration, super simple integration. You can just import the CSS in your browser, and you'll be good, right? You can just kind of know the basic syntax, and that should help you to get a very beautiful website already. It's pre-styled component. That's the best part that I like. It's pre-styled component, right? Which means that you can actually go to Bootstrap and copy paste a component into your application. It just works. Okay, you don't have to understand the insides of it, but it just works. That's the idea of it. Like, the components are built for you already. Just go ahead and import it. If you like it, just take it. It's responsive features. Yes, it's responsive. Like I said, it works on different browser and screen sizes. Screen sizes. Now, browser compatibility. You don't have to think about, is the user coming from Internet Explorer? Is it Safari? Is it Firefox? Is it Chrome? There was a time when developers would have to program or write CSS differently for different browsers. Nightmare, if you ask me. And that era, fortunately, is gone. Now it's way better in terms of browser compatibility because we have these frameworks. And there's so much more. I'd encourage you to go ahead and explore, but I guess that should be good enough for now. So let's move forward unless you have a question. All right, I'll take it as a no. Let's move forward. Now, the layout file. Now, why are we talking about layout file here? It's pretty simple. If you are using, for example, Facebook, right, or Twitter, it doesn't look different on different pages. It has a global style. It has a standard style that it looks same across all the pages, right? It's because it has a global layout, I would say, right? And the global layout gives you the basics of all the, for example, header, footer, how the font size is, and how the font should look, right? What should be the color and all that. Everything is done in a layout system. Like it's a what we can see that it's kind of, you build a framework for your application, and every page just follows that framework, right? And fundamentally, this can come from layout. Okay, we'll be building a layout as well. And what is that layout actually? The layout is just nothing but an HTML file. Okay, it's a wrapper. It's a wrapper. So all your page content will come inside of this page, but this page will have some extra stuff surrounding it. Okay, so now, for example, how do you create a layout file? We can create something called base.html, base.html, which we can extend in future, right? But the layout file will be called base.html. In the head of the base.html, and head is one of the toughest component. I think is in the main HTML wrapper. Head is the first tag, right? And we'll see that in a moment. All we have to do, we have to copy paste this link. If you're seeing my mouse, this link tag with everything in it. I just copy pasted it from Bootstrap website. Okay, what it's basically doing is it's saying that it's a style sheet, and the link to it is here: cdn.js deliver.net blah blah blah, Bootstrap version 4. And then end of the day, you can see that it's getting the bootstrap.min.css is the minified version of the CSS. So that's basically what we're interested in. We're importing bootstrap.min.css here. There is some other things like integrity and cross origin, blah, blah, blah. And these are like a bit advanced topic. You can Google for yourself, but not super important at this point. Then the next item that I have in here is, you can see, there's a title. Excuse me. As you can see, the title is basically a block. This is not really a layout thing. This is more of a Flask thing. Okay. And why do we have this here? It's because on different pages, you want the page title to change. If you're in the login page, you want the page title to say login. If you are, for example, in the tweets page, you want the title to say all your tweets are here, for example, right? So the title should change based on which page you are in. But we are using the same layout across all the pages, right? The same layout, but something in the layout has to change. We are using the layout, but the layout has to change based on the page that we are in. So how do we solve this problem? It's kind of declaring a variable here, and the variable is block title. It's basically called blocking in Jinja 2. Ooh, Jinja 2. Jinja 2 is a framework, is a templating framework inside Flask library that we are using. It by default uses Jinja 2. There are many other, but it's basically nothing but some special syntax that you can use to kind of render the template. Okay, block is just one of them. Okay, at this point, all we have to know, that's Jinja, yes, Jinja. But I'm saying Jinja 2 because I believe that it's using Jinja 2. Jinja has multiple versions. If I'm not mistaken, this is Jinja 2. And it's the same UI framework, templating framework templating library used by Django as well. Django is the other framework. So yeah, so coming back to this point, block is a way to change something in the template, in the layout. Block is a way to change something in the layout. And you can see Ansible. Wow, I don't have much experience with Ansible Trader, but it's good to know. It's a very powerful library though. I'm a big fan of it. So it's a templating library. It's a highly praised open source. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so block is a way to change something in the layout. So as you can see that we can change the title from anywhere in the page, anywhere from any other page. Okay, so we have to just extend this block. The next block that we have here is div class container. A container is something that contains HTML. And there we have we have a block as well, block content and end block. As you can see, it's an empty block. The title is also an empty block. There's nothing in between, right? Nothing in between. It's just a blank blocks, which means it needs to be extended, right? It needs to be extended, or the value needs to be passed. That's how it is. That layout is not supposed to have anything inside of it. The actual content needs to be coming from the page itself. So look into the page now. So let's move forward. So remember, we have a block title and we have a block content, and we imported our CSS in here. All right, let's move forward. There you go. The template file. So how does the template file look? A template file is the actual page, the login page, or the tweets page, or the registration page. These are the template pages. Okay, so imagine this is wrong. This is not base.html. My bad. I forgot to change it. But see one thing here: extends base.html. So we are basically extending the layout that we saw here. So extending this file here. Okay, and then see, I'm saying I'm providing a value for the login. Block title is login. You know what will happen? It will go back and change this entire block with the login text. Okay, this login, this login text. Whatever I write in here will be the value of this title. Okay, because I have the block here. So basically, I'm declaring a variable here, and I'm providing the value for it here. Okay, then if I go back, remember we had a content block content, and it had nothing inside of it. There you go. In this page, I said block content, and inside of it, I provided the HTML. I want the layout to render. Again, it's like a variable declared in the layout, and then I'm providing the value. So this entire form will be rendered in this block. Okay, and you can see this is sorry, I'll go back. This form method post, you know what? I copy pasted this entire form syntax from Twitter Bootstrap. So from the Bootstrap framework. Why I keep saying Twitter Bootstrap? Because Twitter Bootstrap is the first name of Bootstrap was Twitter Bootstrap. It was built open source by Twitter, so it had the Twitter name, and then they removed it, the Twitter. So now it's only Bootstrap. Anyways, so this form actually copy pasted from Bootstrap website. I just copy pasted it and just changed the name of the field, and that's how it looks. The end result, we go from the left to right. We go from login, which doesn't look on the left side, doesn't look good at all, and to the right side where you can see that we have a very beautiful form with a clear, beautiful login button and some some header as well. Looks pretty good, no? Any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question about, excuse me. I have a question about your previous slides were trying to import in the what is it, CDN, the content delivery network.
Yeah.
Okay. My question was, it seems like every HTML gonna start with this base model, like base file. So my question from the performance perspective, what if the CDNs, like they're down or something? Does it mean all the HTML files try to fetch it will stuck there?
A very good question. So yeah, so CDNs, content delivery network. First of all, why do we have CDNs? Content delivery network are supposed to be highly distributed, close to the user end, super fast in terms of accessing. This is by definition how CDN is supposed to be. And CDN should have backup as well. Like if it one CDN, one server dies, there should be backup that should move the resource. I mean, we should be able to get the resource from the second backup, right? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that CDN by definition is supposed to be fast, reliable, and what do you call resilient. Okay. Now, if it goes down, we're in big trouble. If it absolutely, did it go down ever? Absolutely. Yes, it did. In my life, I have seen multiple times, not so many times though, at least 1 or 2 times the CDN going down. But it did happen. It probably can happen, but the chances are really low. Okay. Especially, for example, if you're, so that's one thing. The second thing is the CDN is preferable. It's preferred to use CDN because every page load will need the bootstrap.mean.css, right? So it can deliver really fast to your website because you can host your server. For example, you are hosting in the US or in Canada, right? But you may have someone coming from Singapore visiting your website. You may have someone coming from the Europe visiting your website. If you hosted bootstrap.mean.css, the bootstrap.mean.css, imagine is 200 kilobyte, would have to be delivered from US or Canada all the way to Singapore. So that there is a latency cost, right? Your page will render slow if your resources are coming from a different geographic region, right? That's the reason we have CDN. If you use CDN, because the user is in Singapore, he will probably find a closest CDN. It will probably be redirected to the closest CDN delivery network, and just download somewhere from Singapore itself, right? Or maybe the nearest country next to it. So this is the responsibility of the CDN to kind of take care of how to deliver the file to the user end of the day, so that we don't have to think about it. Okay. But coming back to your question, can it go down? Yes. But what happens if it go down? Your application will look really ugly, because it will look like this on the left side. It will not look on something like on the right side. Definitely not desirable. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So as long as it's not like the application actually stuck there, try to get to the file, and it won't load the rest of it won't continue execution.
No, if the CSS file is not loadable, then it will not load the CSS only, and everything in the page will be loaded. Everything else, for example, the other CSS, if you have, then other HTML elements, everything will be loaded, will be rendered, but it will not have the beautiful style.
Thank you.
Okay, another thing I must mention, I want to correct that. Every time your page loads, the CSS will be loaded if there is no caching, but by default, there will be caching, okay? Browser will automatically optimize it. It will say that, hey, this is a CSS file, it's loaded on every page. I'll probably just go ahead and cache it. So that way, if the CSS is loaded, even if the CDN is down, there is a chance that it will not be, your browser will still manage to show you beautiful UI. Just a side note.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Any other question, please? All right. So let's move forward. Let's try it out. All right. So this is the time, exciting time. We'll be coding live on Repl.it. I'll be sharing the link. Need volunteers so that I'm not the only one coding, so we can code together. We'll be pair programming. Okay. If you don't have any coding experience, you're still encouraged to code, so you can learn more when you code. Okay. So let's start. This is the day 8. Let me go to the day 9. So there is the day 9. I'll invite, copy link, and I'll be sharing this link with you here in the chat. If you click on that, you'll be able to join me. Okay, see, one volunteer joined. All right. So I hope, please feel free to join. We'll code together. This is a great opportunity. Always, I like pair programming. It's super exciting. We code together. We do XP as well, extreme programming. Really, really good concepts. If you don't know about it, I highly encourage you to explore these options. You learn a lot when you perform pair programming in XP. All right. So this is what we have in here is the day 9, but day 9 looks exactly like day 8 because we haven't really changed anything. Today, we are going to implement whatever we have learned. The first thing first is the session management. So let's fix the session, okay? We have around 40 minutes, okay? So let's fix our session. So as you can see, line number 6 here has current user variable, right? Current user. This is bad practice. We don't need current user, right? And let's see where else this current user is used. Current user, line number 6, where we are declaring this global variable. And then in the line number 24, I'm checking if there is a current user, which means if the user is logged in, redirect the user to Twitch page, otherwise to the login page. Simple, right? So this is the place where we have to check. I'll just comment here. I'll comment here. Check if the user is logged in. It's just for your help. Check if the user is logged in. Now then, next one is, again, we have current user here. You can see that I'm declaring global variable current user just to access the global variable because we are going to modify that here. There you go. All right. So I'm getting the username here. I'm getting the password here. And there is a function that we created in the last class, I believe, where password match will take the username and password that the user provided and to return true or false, which is a Boolean value, true or false, if the user is authenticated. If the user is authenticated, we say here that the current user, there you go. We are setting the global variable here. Current user is username. This is bad, right? We should not use the global variable to store currently logged in users information, which is definitely a very bad practice, but we did it just so that we could focus on something else, and this is the time to fix it. Now, here we need to use last session, and I'm just commenting things. I'm not gonna write the code. You are the one writing the code. And if the user is logged out, I mean, if it clicks on log out, then we need to again here user Flask session to log out the user. Okay. Is there any other place where we have current user used? Let's see. We are currently in a refactoring job, right? Because we are changing our code. There you go. When we add tweet, when the user posts the tweet, we call the model function called add tweet, where the tweet is the first variable and current user is a second variable, passing as a parameter. So we need to change here. We cannot take the current user from the global variable. Change to use user info from session, right? We cannot use current user. Is there any other place? There you go. We are rendering template. We are passing the current user again here. So this is also needs to change the user to get the data from this session. Any other place? Current user, let me see. Current user. So this is the declaration of it. Yeah, we added comment for this, we added comment for this. Yeah, we saw this, we added comment for this. Add user, yes, we added comment for this. And I think that's all. All right, so let's start refactoring. First thing we need to do is we need to get rid of, the global variable that was solving our problem so far, but not anymore. We don't need that, so deleted that. Good job. Okay. Then the second solution here to check if the user exists or not, right? If the user has a session or not, we need to check if the user is in session. The user is a key, by the way, right? User is going to be a key. We haven't declared this key yet in the session. So the user variable, the user is a key, so it needs to be a string. There you go. Exactly. So the key is a string. So we're checking that if this key is in session. If it is in session, then actually user has a session. So user's logged in. Otherwise, just log out. Great. What is next?
Sorry, where did the user come from? The string user?
Question. We haven't added this key yet, right? It just happened to be the first function that we touched, but we haven't really declared the user key yet. So it's going to be coming from the next function, which is the login function, line number 38. If you go to line number 38, here we are setting the current user to be whatever the username is, right? So here is the place where we need to create the key, user key. Right? So it's going to be, there you go. It's going to be session, then the key. And this key can be anything. You could call it user, or you could call it user info. It's totally up to you. What do you want to call this variable, call this key to be, right? It can be user info, you name it. But just remember that if you change it to user info, for example, everywhere we take the key needs to be user info. So it needs to be consistent in your application. So for now, we are just using user as a key. Yeah. So line number 39, what it's doing is that we're just setting the user key and the value is the username. And we are doing it when the user is authenticated, line number 37, right? The password matched, the username matched. So user has right to log in. That's why line number 39, we are assigning a session to the user. Great job. So what's next? We may want to go to the next one, which is 47, use Flask session, right? There's a question from trader. So this, of course, is based on the fact that our username are all unique, right? Yes, the username should be unique. And our database has a unique feature implemented, like we don't use duplicate user. We don't take duplicate users. The database has it enforced. All right, so next thing that we need to do is line number 48. Can someone tell me what needs to be done here? Line number 48.
Need to delete the session.
Yes, and? Exactly. We just delete the key, right? As simple as that. We delete the key when the user is logged out. What happens? The user session is lost. System doesn't have the user information. Next time user tries to log in, done. User will be forced to log in. Session doesn't exist. Great. That was easy. What's next then? Let's go scroll down. I added the comment. Okay, line number 66. What can we do about it? It's taking the value from the global variable, which of course doesn't exist at this point. Yeah. So what's happening is that instead of accessing the global variable, we'll be taking the value from session variable, right? Great. Any questions so far? There is no bad question. Okay, moving forward, looks like all good. Okay, we have one more place to change, I believe, which is the line number 78, 79. Excellent. Is there any other? I think that's all. As you can see here, we are all the places here we are using session variable, right? Accessing session variable, checking if the user is there in the session. This is okay for now, but for a good developer and to provide an extendable solution, I would create a session.py on the left side. You can see there's a users.py, right? This is for managing users only, right? You can see there is a tweets.py for, it has all tweet related functionality, right? This is how you manage your code. Instead of like, using a variable everywhere and doing like, this is Tangle, like we change, if you have to change the variable name or you have to change something, you have to come and scan through your code, and the code is becoming long, right? You can see that this code is already 100 lines, more than 100 lines. But if you go to tweets.py, it looks so simple, right? We are all human. We make mistakes, and it's important now for our code to look simple so that we don't make mistakes, right? So a better solution would be, I'm not saying that we have to do it now, but a better solution would be that we create something called session.py, and then, okay, someone is already going ahead and doing that. And then And then what are the functions that we could have in the session.py? Anyone?
Maybe get and set.
Exactly. What are the functions we have? It should be coming from business point of view. That's a business question, right? What are the features that we need? The first thing we need is that create a session, right? Create session. Second function that we want is get session. Also, we want has session, has underscore session, which we should return true or false, right? We should return true or false. And if the user has a session, we'll return true, otherwise it will be false, right? So we need to create session. We need to check if the user has a session. We need to delete the session as well, right? It's like something like a CRUD functionality. We don't need edit session though.
Do you call this session .py controller or model?
No, I would call it a model still, because model is not something that is only connected to the database. Okay, this behind the scene can talk to a model, because who says the session can be only in memory, or who says the session can be only file-based? Because this is file-based. Like behind the scene is handling the session file-based, but it can switch anytime. But we don't have to like change our code because the underlying storage is changing, right? So I would still call it a model because it allows me to access some resources, which is not something that I'm interested in. Okay, so this is rather a model that controller can use. Then in the main.py, I'll be using session.py model to access session information. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, now we can't really use session like this. We need to import the session first, right? Just to add to the point that whether I call it a model or controller, you can also call it a helper, session helper. Yeah. You cannot go wrong in terms of calling it something like model or helper or even a controller. I think what is important to understand is the first very important thing is that you understand the importance of modular code, right? And with this, you can see that all the session-related functionalities in one file. It becomes really, really helpful and easy for anyone to extend. This is the first principle. Now, if it is more of a controller helper, you could call it a helper. There are also model helper, right? There are some functionalities that you don't want to keep in model. Instead, those are like reusable functionalities that model often use. You can also call model helper, okay? But if you ask me, I feel like this is more of a model because this model helps me interact with the session backend. All right, so we have Flask session, create session, get session, has session, delete session. The create session we are creating, setting the username, yes. Get session, excellent. Session in session, excellent. I like that. So user in session, but there is a problem with this code. Can someone highlight? No, I don't think we have to rewrite it. The code was okay, but the code has had a problem. You can just undo it. Yeah. What is a session? Whoever can answer this question will get access to, will be given one JetBrains license. I hope you know what JetBrain is. I gave out already two. We have 2 winners already. So today is going to be the 3rd winner's day. Anyone? And this is easy though. Super easy. Whoever answers this first, please answer in the chat so I know who answered first. Answer needs to be in the chat. So the question will be here, return user in session. This is what was written, right? And this code has a problem. Who can fix it in the chat? Line number 6, return session. Line number 6, return session. No? Anyone else? And again, this is not complicated though. This is something we already know. No, line number, if you're looking at, if you see my screen, line number 13 should function correctly. It's a problem with line number 13. It's not a problem with anything else. So let's focus on line number 13. This code itself, this single line has a problem.
So user is session is a dictionary. User is a key. Key check is a key in the dictionary, and you return true and false, and return true and false.
Right. User is a key. Yes.
Or
no, we don't have to write any different code. We don't have to. That one line is good enough, but this line has a problem.
maybe session dot keys.
No.
No. Okay.
The solution needs to be in the chat so I know who answered it first. We know that already. Is user supposed to be string user? Yes, Damer, you are right. Absolutely. Absolutely, Damer. Great. Congratulations. Damer, I'll need your email address so that I can send the license to you. So if it is a dictionary and if you're looking for a key, the key that we said was string. So we need to check string, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very, very, it's very easy to overlook, but yeah, great. Please.
But I gotta give the credit to 913. It's a super bravo line. I learned something new today.
Yeah.
Very elegant, simple. I would do like a if else.
Yeah,
return.
yeah. This is a very elegant syntax. I really like it. All right, I will just take this note here just so that I can send the license. All right. Great. So I think we're all good. I don't think we can, I mean, it's already 11:40. We need to, let's use this session in our main, or maybe why not we stop it and run it and see if the session is working first, okay? Okay, so if we open in a new tab and then maybe go to register first, register, and then the user is, there's an internal server error. Let's see what's going on. Oh, we have a unique constraint. All right, so Hassan is already taken. Actually, you have to handle this error, Let me name it, what? Mr. A, once again, Mr. A, and then sign up. Internal server, is it again unique? Yeah, I think we need to fix it. Let's do Mr. 1 and Mr. 1, okay? Mr. 1, sign up, working, all right. And then let's log in. So this is with the new session management, by the way, right? This is new code in action, Mr. 1 and Mr. 1. Mr. 1, Mr. 1. All right, let's log in. All right, you can see that it's working. We are logged in, but how are we so sure that our new code is functioning correctly, right? Don't you want to look at the cookie? Let's take a look. What do you think? All right, in order to do that, I'm using Firefox at this point. I need to go to storage. You can right click on your page, inspect or inspect element on your browser. Then you can go to here. I'm going to storage here. And then you can see that I have multiple storages, right? I have cache, cookie, IndexedDB, blah, blah, blah. But I'll go to cookie, and then you can see there's one item inside the cookie. That's the host name that I'm on, right? So let's click on that. And there you go. There is something called session, right? There you go, this session. It has a value, which is a random hash. The domain is the host name. And you can see the session expires is a session, which means that if the browser is closed, this session will be gone. So let's click on that and see the session data, detailed information is shown. This is, by the way, on the client side. This is stored on your browser. So anyone can go ahead and inspect these cookies to see what is in there. Like this is definitely something if you have never tried it, please go ahead and try out. Go to different websites, see what cookies they're setting. Some might make sense, some might not, but it's important that you get familiar with cookies. All right, you see the cookies ID is a session, and this has a random key. This is the key using which the Flask framework is tracking the user. Okay, this is a random ID you can say for your session. All right, it created on this date and then expires when the session closed. Okay, there are many other fields that we probably don't want to talk about now. Maybe we just see that if everything is functioning correctly. Hello session, quit, working. Hello session 2, quit, working. So let's go to tweets and see. There you go. Hello session 1, hello session is from hello session and hello session 2. Both are showing up here correctly, which means our application is functioning correctly. So this is the correct way of managing session for user using the session library, right? And how is it working? It's working using cookies. It's using cookies for tracking the user. Now let's do one thing. Like, let's have some fun. I will delete this cookie. How about that? Okay. Let me delete this cookie. Right click, delete all. Okay. I deleted the cookie. So you can see that the information is not available. When I click on it, no data is available. What do you think should happen now?
User forced to log in again.
User will be logged out, right? So if I go to home page, for example, if I was logged in, then it would automatically send me the tweets page. But now it's a new login page, right? But I just logged in, right? So what happened? My session is gone, and then it logged me out, right? So someone was talking about the incognito. So why don't we go private window, which is there you go. So let's try it here. I'll copy, and let's go to the private browsing window, and we'll show you what happens if the browser is closed, right? So let's go there. I'll again inspect element and go on the right side to the storage. There you go, it's storage. And the cookie, it doesn't have any value, right? There is no values you can see. So let's go and sign up first, /register. And I will say Mr. 2 and Mr. 2. Mr. 2 is signing up, sign up. And then now let's go log in, Mr. 2 and Mr. 2. So the moment I log in, I go to cookie, and there you go. I have the cookie. I have the session ID, right? I have the session ID. So if I go to /tweets, I can see all old tweets. Now I'll not delete this. And instead, I'll close the private browsing window. Okay? Done. Now let's open a new private browsing window. Definitely it will ask me to log in, right? And if I refresh here, also the main window also is forcing me to go to the login. So definitely if you close private browsing, it's not going to work, right? It's private browsing. The moment you delete it, everything is gone. But how do we, maybe we use a different browser this time altogether, right? So let's try this. I'll go to Safari, okay? Just to demo this instead of private browsing. So I'm using a different browser now, okay? I'll log in maybe to inspect element here. In Safari, you have it as well. And storage, and there you go. You have cookies here, right? So Mr. 2, and Mr. 2 is the password, same. So I log in, don't want to save never for this side. And then I have the session here, right? I'll go ahead and close this window, okay? And let me come back and open Safari once again. Where's my Safari? File, maybe just open a new window, okay? Now let's paste it. If I go to home page, I'm logged in. Can someone tell me why it's logged in? It's because browser is not fully closed, okay? So I'll have to close this browser completely. And then I'll go to Safari once again, and I'll paste it. Now it will take me to the login. So if you see you're still logged in, it's probably because the browser window is not fully closed. Okay, I'm on a Mac, so in order for me to fully close the browser window, I have to go Safari and quit Safari. Okay, so I'll try it once again. Mr. B and Mr. B login. Then I will, sorry, Mr. 2 and Mr. 2 login, and then I'll close Safari completely, and then I'll come back and then open the same window, and there you go. I'm forced to log out now, forced to log in now. Any question? Make sense? Excellent. So I think as far as session is concerned, we are in a pretty good shape. We only have 12 minutes left. Not enough time for HTML, okay? But I would like to at least integrate the layout for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just 12 more minutes. So just to save time, what I will do is I'll copy this branch of code, okay? Because I think that will save us time. I'll go to templates, and I'll create something called add file called base.html, okay? Base.html. And the base.html, let's open that here. Base.html. Where's my base.html? Oh, it's opening here. Sorry. Base.html. There you go. And then let's paste it. Okay. Now let's go and get the layout from Bootstrap. Okay. So let's do that. So we go here, get Bootstrap layout. Okay. I'll go and quick one. There's a question from Trader. User is a string parameter to the function. Hash session was correct. Trader, I'm not sure. I haven't used the hash session. Hash session. So I didn't get the question. If you please elaborate a little more.
Yeah, so the function that we put in the session.py, right? In the return statement, looking up that key in the session dictionary.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't have to have a string because the user is a parameter string.
Oh, no, user is a parameter string. Yes, you're right. You're right. What you're saying. Yes. So here is user is a parameter string. But do you really need the parameter as user? Because you don't, in order to have a session, you don't need a variable here at all. right? So this code should be something like this: has session, and that's it, right? Because when you created the session, right? When you created the session, you using a hard-coded key here, which is user, right? When you're getting the session, you also created using a hard-coded user. When you check whether it has the session, it should be the same key as well, right? If you wanted this to be a variable, I understand where you're coming from. That's actually a very, very, very good question. Okay, if this needs to be a key, I mean, your outside world shouldn't know what the key should be, because key is a very low level implementation, low level detail, right? So if we ever had to, like, hey, we don't want a hardcode user, can we use a variable? Yes. So we can do something like session key, or maybe a capital, just to show that the session key is a constant. Session key is user. Okay. And then here we can say that user key, and then here we can say user key, something like this. Okay. And then return user key in session. So that's how it should be, if you ask me. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, just want to confirm my knowledge here. So that line 14, when you do something like something in something, especially the session is a dictionary, the first user key has to be the key or the object of the dictionary. It has to be the key.
So let's try it out then. So you see on the right side, there's a console right here. Yep. Okay, so I'll go to Python. Sorry, go to Python. Okay, and then let's create an object. Okay, so let's call it session, and we'll create our own session here, and I'll set something called user. Or maybe let's not user. Let's say A. The value of A is 1. And then I'll have a B key, and the value of B will be 2. Okay, so this is basically a dictionary. All right. Now, if I do session, then you can see that it's printing the session content, which is A is 1 and B is 2, right? Now, in order to get the value from there, so I'll do session, and then I'll pass A, which is string, because my key is a string here, right? This is a string, and this is also a string, right? So session A gives us 1, and session B gives us 2. So excellent, everything's working. Now, how do we check if the key exists in the session dictionary, right? So we'll do whether this A string is in session, right? So I'm checking whether this A string is, as a key, is there in this session, right? So it can either be there or it may not be there. So it's going to be true or false. And then it's saying it's true because A is a key that exists in session, right? So now if I say, no, can you look for something like Z, which definitely is not there, and to say it's false. Okay. I don't know. I just wanted to walk through this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Since we're talking about it, can we do, yes, we can do session.keys as well. Yes, session.keys will give you all the keys, right? And there you go. It gives you the keys in a list, right? And then we could also do this, like is A in session.keys, and then it says it's true. So this is the other way of doing it. So you're converting all the keys into a list and then checking if the key is there in the list, right? But definitely there is a better syntax, which is, better syntax means that in dictionary you can also do that, which is user key in session, right? That also works. So you don't have to convert the dictionary into list, right? But this works as well. Yeah. Any further? Very good discussion though. There's really good ones, and it's clarifying stuff. Enjoying it. Any other question? Great. We have only five minutes left, but you know what? Why not? We just go ahead, and I already solved that, and I'll just show you how it's done. Okay, I'll stop it. and we'll go to the REPL, my REPLs, okay. And then I have the great data installed here, okay. And let me show you what, and it's going to be the same thing. So I think it makes sense to show you the end result. So here it is. I'll go line by line. The first, this is base.html, right? This is the layout, like I said, that should have the uniformity, right? And then this is the doc type. And then I have HTML stuff. Every HTML document should have HTML start and HTML end, right? This is like the start of the document and end of the document, something like this. Doc type HTML, it says that this is version HTML5. The HTML has multiple versions. There's like HTML3, HTML4, HTML5. HTML4 was the last standard. HTML5 is the new standard, and you should be using HTML5 all the time. It doesn't say the version clearly, but whenever you say doc type HTML, you know that this is HTML5. All right. Then the first thing we have here is the head tab. Okay, let me add a, yeah. So there you go. You can see that there's a link here. Where is this link coming from? This is linked to the CSS, right? So let's go and search for Bootstrap CSS CDN. Okay, so let's go there, and there you go. You can get Bootstrap. Get Bootstrap is the website. You can go here, and the moment you go here, you'll see that there's a Bootstrap current version 5.3, and it's alpha. So let's use Bootstrap version 4 still, and then we have this CDN link, right? We have this CDN link, and we can just copy this and go to this page and just paste it here. So you can see that it's almost same, right? The hash is a little different, but they look exactly the same. And it's getting the JavaScript from, the CSS from this jsdelivery.net.
Sorry,
right?
just a question. I see there's an npm install that thing, and also we do like in the HTML embedded this thing. So I guess there's a two way of doing this, right?
Yeah. So one way of doing it is this. The other one, are you saying that is there an npm way of doing it?
Yeah, I saw somewhere on the top.
Absolutely. You can do npm install Bootstrap. That is a good way as well. But remember, if you do npm install Bootstrap, then where is the Bootstrap library installed?
Sure.
In your source code, right? Or the wherever you're hosting it. So that you have the same problem now. Now, if you're serving this data from Canada, for example, and the user is logging in or user is visiting you from Singapore, where will Bootstrap be served from?
Oh, so you're saying for this one, instead of, well, if on the CDN, you don't have to go to the server, but now because you host it in the server, so you have to make a call to the server. That's extra help if we cross latency, ocean, that kind of thing. Then...
Yes, exactly. So if you use CDN, is a better solution because CDN will help the user to download the data directly from the closest server that he has. All right. But if you do npm install way, npm install will host the data, will host the file on your server. It adds number one overhead, right? If it's a very busy server, you're telling your server to serve your CSS file as well, and that's not gonna be very efficient. Number one, from server perspective. Second problem is that the user, if his user is visiting from a different country, then there's a latency problem, right? So if you can use CDN, bottom line, use CDN. That's my, but use a CDN that is famous, right? A famous CDN is probably more maintained. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Great. So I'll just get rid of my link and use the new link that I copied. And there you go. There's a title block, and the block has nothing but it's just a variable. Consider that to be a variable that is empty that needs to be filled up, right? I added the navigation from here. So I went to Bootstrap, and then you can see Bootstrap has many examples. I can go to examples. Let me go to Bootstrap home. Where the documentation? There you go. In the documentation, you'll find something called components. Okay, there you go. If you go to components, you'll see all sort of Bootstrap components here. You can see something called my favorite, which is the examples, where I normally download and copy paste. Where can I find it? There you go. This content. Okay. So there are a lot of examples here that I would encourage you to go ahead and take a look. Right. So, and But what I'm looking for here, I'm not really finding it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Content, form, for example, right? If I go to form overview, you can see that there is an example of this form, email and password. This is an example. Now, if you like it, you can go ahead and just copy this file, copy this code here, copy, and just paste it. That's the beauty of it. So the things are, components are already built for you. If you like it, go ahead and copy paste it, right? For example, the form control, right? You can go, if you like this component, just copy and paste it, right? There are other components like, for example, accordion, right? If you go to accordion, you can see this component here, like pretty cool, right? If you see that you need something like this that has a header and a text, and you want this kind of accordion functionality, just go ahead and copy this code and you're all good, right? The good thing about it is the moment you have this HTML, the CSS imported, everything here will work out of the box. You don't have to like go ahead and program it. You can just customize it. That's the beauty of it. I also got this, I got this navigation here. So this is called a nav bar. There you go, nav bar. So you can see a nav bar looks is like this. It has the header, and then there are some links here, right? It looks pretty cool. If you like it, just copy that. I probably copied the next one, which is here. This one, a nav bar that has 3-4 links, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The good thing about it is that just notice this, right? Just keep an eye. So when I change the browser size, see the nav bar, the links has now a different home, right? It's called the hamburger menu. So it's like, looks like a hamburger. And then you can see all the links are inside of it. So this is how responsiveness is already built into Twitter Bootstrap, right? We didn't have to do anything. All we had to do is just follow the syntax, like copy the syntax, copy the code here, and use Twitter Bootstrap as a link, right? As a library. So I just copy pasted this link here, as you can see, right? And then I have another variable called block content, and then that shows the content, right? This is a variable. Now, this is the base.html. So now let's go to the login page. Now, in the login page, what we had just basic HTML before, now we just added a few things here. I said that extend the base.html, which is something that I just newly created here, right? Base.html. Extend it, which means that inherit everything that is there. What we have, everything will be inherited, including these block functionalities, right? Include the block functionalities. Now, if I go to login.html, here you can see that it says the block title, the value is login, which means this page will show the title bar, the text login, and then block content will show this form, right? And there you go, the form is showing up here, right? And then I said that the input, the name is username, and the name is password. There's a name username, there's name password, and there is a login button. And you can see that the BTN primary. If I change the BTN primary to something like BTN success, for example, and you can find the documentation there, it's super easy. Right, let me save it and run it, and you'll see that how it changes. Okay, so let me open that. And there you go. Now it's green, right? Now it's showing green. Before it was blue, now it's green. So your login page is ready and it looks beautiful. Now, if I change the browser size, there you go. You see how it's working. It's responsive. If you're coming from a browser, it will look like this. If you use a tab, if you're browsing from a tab, maybe like this, and on a full-fledged desktop application or desktop window, you'll see the links here, right? Super easy. So let's log in now. Mr. B, was that Mr. 2? Sorry, and Mr. 2, my new account. So I log in. I don't want to save. There's an internal server error. I don't know why. So let me take a look. Cannot unpack. Okay. I'm not sure why I have this. Main.py34. Let me take a look. 34. Password match. Okay. Maybe username didn't exist. Maybe the username didn't exist. I think I'll have to go and relog in. Let me see. So register, and Mr. X. There you go. And then let's go to login. There you go. Our login page looks good. Mr. X and Mr. X. Okay, login. There you go. Now see the tweets page is also looking better, right? If I resize it, it looks good, beautiful. It's way better than what we had before. And then maybe just hello there from Mr. X, right? Wait, we need to fix these pages as well, but end of the day, you can see that all the links are working. We need to fix this page as well. All tweets are not looking good, but that's the idea, right? That's the idea that you have the base and you have the login. See in the login page, it's looking beautiful. The moment you have the HTML integrated, it looks beautiful. It's 12:06. I know we are 6 minutes over. I want to wrap it up with one example, just to show you how easy it is to integrate a component. Okay. And there you go. I'll just get the accordion code that I showed you. I copy that, and let me go to the login and login block, or maybe even in the base.html. Maybe login. Okay, never mind. I'll put it in here. I'll just paste this code in here. Okay, I just copy paste it. You can then go ahead and customize the text here. Okay, I'll stop and restart. Okay, and if I refresh, I'll go and log out, and there you go, the login page. Okay, I think I'm missing some I think I'm missing some components here, pretty sure. I'm missing some JavaScript, maybe in the base. But the end idea is that if you have the copy pasted, have the code copy pasted here, it should just work. I don't know why it's not working. Let me take a look if there's an error. Network reload. Okay, I don't see an error. So maybe there is an additional JavaScript that I need to include, which I missed. Why not I try a different one, alert one. Let me see if that works. Okay, maybe I'll just copy all this, go to login, and undo this and paste this. Paste all the alerts, stop it, restart it. Okay, and then refresh this page. There you go. See, all the alerts are showing up, and all I had to do is just copy paste. So you can find out, like, if you need a notice somewhere, like in blue box or in green box, just copy the appropriate HTML and paste it, and you're good to go. All right. Any questions so far? 8 minutes over, but I'm still okay. If you have any question. No? All right. So we will be, I just wanted to finally wrap this up with this. So what is in the next class? So next class is going to be more Twitter Bootstrap, right? We'll be showing user list. Okay? We'll be showing the user list, who we are following or who we are unfollowing. So we'll be showing a list of all the users, and we'll be able to follow or unfollow users. So this is a functionality that we'll be building in the next class. Okay? And this is going to be, again, the beginner session. Please join. And if you haven't really, if it's the first session, please watch the videos on YouTube. That will help you to get started as well. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And I hope you learned something today. Please do give me some reviews, how I can improve it. Or if there is any other content that you want to take a look at. Let me know, and I'll be building the content for you. Thank you so much. Have a very good weekend, everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye.